This is what I always wanted. Not money. Not success. Not even answers. What I wanted was a moment. One moment that changes how you see someone forever. And I didn't know it at the time. But that Thursday afternoon gave me exactly that. Before we begin, if you believe the smallest moments sometimes carry the biggest emotions, if you've ever felt something awaken inside you when you least expected it, make sure you subscribe, because stories like this don't just entertain. They stay with you. Now let me take you back to the day everything quietly shifted. Ethan Walker never imagined that an ordinary Thursday afternoon would end up sitting so heavily in his memory. It wasn't supposed to be important. No plans. No expectations. No signs that anything meaningful was about to happen. He had driven over to his grandmother's small house in Oregon simply to help her prepare for a community fundraiser. One of those small-town events where everyone knew everyone, and nothing ever really changed. Or so he thought. The house was warm when he stepped inside. Not just in temperature, but in feeling. The familiar scent of brewed tea, old books, and lavender cleaner hung gently in the air. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, painting slow golden stripes across the living room floor. And that's when he saw her. Claire Dawson. She was already there, kneeling near a stack of cardboard boxes, sorting through decorations with calm, practiced movements. As if she had done this 1,000 times before. Which she probably had. She looked up when she heard the door. And smiled. Not a dramatic smile. Not forced. Just that soft, steady expression she always carried. The one Ethan had spent years pretending didn't affect him. Claire had always felt different. She didn't move through life with urgency. She didn't demand attention. She didn't try to be seen. She simply was. There was a quiet strength about her. Gentle eyes that noticed details other people missed. A voice that somehow softened every room she entered. Like she carried peace with her without even trying. Ethan greeted her politely, his tone casual. "Hey, Claire." She laughed softly in response. The same familiar sound he'd heard at family gatherings, holiday dinners, and fundraiser nights for as long as he could remember. Ethan. Your grandmother's got us working today." Everything felt normal, comfortable, safe, until his grandmother's phone rang. She excused herself, stepping outside to take the call. And suddenly, it was just the two of them. The house didn't feel empty, but it felt closer. The afternoon sunlight shifted, turning the room warmer, quieter. The air seemed to slow down, as if time itself had decided to pause. They worked side by side, sorting ribbons and decorations. Claire joked lightly about being terrible at arts and crafts. Ethan laughed. It was simple, easy. Then, everything changed. Ethan bent down to pick up a ribbon that had slipped from the table. That's when he heard it. The sharp slide of fabric against carpet. He looked up just in time to see Claire's foot twist on the edge of a loose rug. She didn't scream. She gasped. But that sound. It went straight through him. Without thinking, without hesitation, Ethan lunged forward. His hands caught her arms just before she fell. Her body trembled. Her knees buckled. Instinct took over. He guided her backward until her shoulder met the wall, bracing her weight with his own. "I've got you," he said quickly. He hoped his voice sounded steadier than his heart felt. Claire tried to shift her weight. The moment she did, she winced. A quiet sound. Soft, but full of pain. Ethan reacted instantly, pulling her a little closer so she wouldn't fall again. "Wait," she whispered. "I can't move." Those words were simple, but something in her tone changed the room. Everything suddenly felt smaller, closer, intimate in a way Ethan wasn't prepared for. He became painfully aware of her warmth beneath his hands. The way her breath brushed his collar as she tried to steady herself. The faint scent of vanilla and clean laundry in her hair. She looked embarrassed. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes avoiding his. But she couldn't pull away. Not without falling. So she stayed there, pressed gently against him, vulnerable in a way he had never seen her before. Ethan kept reassuring her. "It's okay. You're okay." She nodded, but he could feel the tension in her body, pain, and something else. The discomfort of being caught in a moment that felt far too close, and far too personal. "I don't like being a burden," she whispered. The words hit him harder than he expected. "You're not," he said immediately. "Not at all. I'm glad I was here." She tried to move again. Her ankle shook. She winced harder this time, and without meaning to, her hand gripped his shirt. Just slightly, but that small tug sent his heartbeat stumbling. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was real. And something inside him shifted. Ethan focused on keeping her safe, on staying steady, but he couldn't ignore how close she felt. How human. How real. She apologized again, softer this time. He lowered his voice. "Lean on me. Take your time." She nodded, relaxed slightly in his hold, her fingers still clutching his shirt, like she didn't quite trust her legs yet. Sunlight moved across her hair, and Ethan had to force himself not to stare, not to let his thoughts betray him. Ethan stayed seated across from Claire, but his attention never drifted. Not for a second. The room had fallen into a kind of quiet that wasn't empty, just full. Full of things not being said. Full of awareness neither of them had prepared for. Claire adjusted the blanket on her lap again, even though it didn't need adjusting. It was a nervous habit, he realized. Something she did when she didn't quite know what to do with her hands, or her thoughts. Her ankle was elevated now, wrapped loosely, resting against a cushion his grandmother had insisted on placing just right. The worst of the pain seemed to have passed, but the echo of it still lingered in her posture, in the way she moved carefully, as if her body hadn't yet forgiven her for the misstep. His grandmother bustled in and out of the kitchen, humming softly, completely unaware that something subtle, but powerful, had shifted in her living room. And maybe that was the strange beauty of it. No one else noticed. But Ethan did. And Claire did. That moment against the wall hadn't faded. It had settled. Quietly. Deeply. Claire finally broke the silence. "You didn't have to stay so calm," she said gently, her voice softer than before. "Most people panic when something unexpected happens." Ethan shrugged, though his chest still felt warm. "I wasn't thinking," he admitted. "I just reacted." She looked at him then. Really looked at him. Not like a family friend. Not like someone she'd known for years in passing. But like someone she was seeing clearly for the first time. "That says a lot about you," she said. He shifted slightly in his chair, uncomfortable with praise. "It was nothing." She shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "It wasn't." And something about the certainty in her tone made him believe her. The conversation drifted naturally after that. Slowly. Carefully. As if both of them were walking around a feeling they weren't ready to name. Claire talked about how long she'd lived in Oregon. How she liked the quiet. How busy cities made her anxious now. She spoke about learning to enjoy her own company. About how independence had become both her shield and her habit. Ethan listened. Really listened. Not waiting to speak. Not distracted. Just present. When she spoke about handling things alone, about not wanting to rely on anyone, he saw it clearly now. The strength. Yes. But also the loneliness that strength sometimes hides. "You don't have to do everything by yourself," he said gently. "Even strong people need support sometimes." She smiled at that, but it wasn't carefree. It was grateful. "I know," she said. "I'm just not very good at remembering it." They shared a small laugh. And in that laugh was comfort. Familiarity. Something that felt easy. Minutes passed. Then more. His grandmother eventually returned with ice, fussed a little more, then settled into another room to make phone calls. The house grew quieter again. Claire looked at Ethan, hesitating. "There's something I should probably say," she began. His heart picked up. Not racing, but attentive. "I didn't realize how shaken I was until afterward," she admitted. "Not just because of the fall, but because being caught like that, being held. It reminded me how long it's been since I've let anyone do that." He didn't interrupt. Didn't rush her. She continued, eyes lowered. "I've spent so many years being careful. Keeping things polite. Safe. Controlled. And today, for just a moment, I wasn't." Her voice wavered slightly. "And instead of fear," she added, "I felt relief." Ethan swallowed. "I'm glad I was there," he said quietly. She looked up at him then, emotion shining clearly in her eyes. "So am I." They held each other's gaze. Not awkward. Not rushed. Just honest. Eventually he stood. I should probably head out soon, he said, though part of him didn't want to. She nodded. I know. Thank you again. For everything. He hesitated, then smiled. Take it easy on that ankle. And if you ever need help, you don't have to handle it alone. She smiled back. I'll remember that. He helped clean up a little more, said goodbye to his grandmother, and stepped outside. The air felt cooler, clearer, but something warm stayed with him all the way home. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her. Not obsessively, just gently. He remembered the weight of her leaning against him. The trust. The softness in her eyes when she thanked him. The way the moment hadn't demanded anything, but offered something real. A few days later, his grandmother mentioned casually that Claire's ankle was healing well. She asked about you, she added, stirring her tea. Ethan's heart lifted just slightly. She did. His grandmother smiled knowingly. Yes, she did. The moment he always wanted. A week later, Ethan stopped by again. This time there was no accident. No urgency. Just intention. Claire answered the door herself, moving carefully but smiling brightly when she saw him. I was hoping you'd come by, she said. They sat together in the same living room. Talked longer this time. Deeper. More openly. And somewhere between shared stories and quiet pauses, Ethan realized something important. He hadn't wanted a dramatic moment. He hadn't wanted a grand declaration. What he had always wanted, without knowing it, was connection. Something real. Something gentle. Something that felt safe and meaningful at the same time. And he had gotten it. That day. Against the wall. In the quiet. This is what I always wanted. Not perfection. Not certainty. Just a moment that showed me what was possible. And thankfully, I got it that day.